Welcome to Unorthodox Perspectives with your host, Luke Burrows.
I think like your mission, your vision, your purpose, your passion, it's all interlinked.
And Leeroy Mabonga.
Discipline is the first step to control.
Awesome. All right, guys, we are live, episode 1 of Unorthodox Perspectives. We're here with my man Leeroy. Leeroy, thank you so much for obviously episode 1, but mainly for wanting to do this with me. Obviously, it's been a project now we've been discussing for a little while, and so I'm super happy to make it happen. So, yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, man. Thank you for having me, to be honest. You know, it's always, I think it's always, it's a better journey when you share with someone, it's always a better one, man. But yeah, super excited, man. Hi to everyone. We're here, Unorthodox,
There
live.
we go. Awesome. So yeah, man, I was thinking like for this episode, like an intro episode, like introduce ourselves more and kind of why we decided to do this. Obviously we also, and kind of maybe like how we met and kind of everything and kind of set the kind of theme, I suppose, for, the next couple of weeks and that, the theme for the show and that. So I don't know if you have any kind of thing to share on that, but first of all,
I mean, I think every time I think of what we're doing, like, I always go back to how we actually met, and I'm always just laughing and just thinking, like, wow, I haven't been on Sharper since 2018, so sometimes I feel like, you know what, everything happens for a reason. Do you know what I mean? Remember when I was there, I was meeting people, I was just, opening up to everyone, and I remember we met and we spoke for a while. And then you're like, yeah, man, if you're around, we can catch up. Do you know what I mean? And I think we wanted to meet each other, I think, like quite early on, but we just generally just started talking for quite a while and I ended up in Cheltenham. And then, yeah, the rest was history.
So it was Sharper, was it the app? I can't even. If I'm honest, I can't even remember the first kind of memory that I have is when you're working on something, I think with, was it Derby football,
the football
club,
ground, the
football ground, the football club, and you were looking to do an event or something, and then looking for speakers, I believe, I think. So maybe then we connected on Sharper, whatever the damn app is called, connected on Facebook, and then I'm not sure if then you've seen more of my content, and then it was like, and then obviously we started to talk more, and then probably about 6 months after that, because obviously you come down kind of my way often for work purposes and everything. It just made sense then, like Cheltenham's 40-minute drive from where I live. Then it just made sense to meet up. So that was the first memory I have, is around the like that potential collaboration.
Yeah, because we spoke extensively on that, isn't it? Because I was planning to make like what was it? What do they call them again? Those meetings, not conferences.
Seminar or.
Yeah, because we're talking about having different speakers from different fields and just coming on, and basically it's like they're local heroes, so that people around they can almost also relate to those people. Because if it's somebody who's got a business in Derby who's coming out and speaking to me at an event, it's something where I can even go and see that person's business in town. Do you know what I mean? So that was the idea, in a sense, of like having people around the UK who are doing things and just coming and sharing that with people, and then just helping others, man. But I guess we ended up here.
Yeah, for sure. And so maybe that's like a not necessarily a lesson for people, but like, so what happened with that? I think was there like different things with funding, and then with the football club and that. Like, talk us through that, because obviously that was an idea that you had. And I've had lots of ideas as well in the past that didn't like come to like you had the idea, you're working on the idea, but it just, for whatever reason, didn't happen. And I think for a lot of people, they may get discouraged by that.
I think what had happened was because I went to have a meeting with the person who deals with like engagement in the community engagement manager, and we spoke. And I think what I was going through as well in my own personal life, coupled up with how he was saying that the program would go, it was the fact that I was supposed to be now on a program for like 2 years to become a community officer, sort of somebody who can engage with the community, which was I was willing to get to jump on the course and just do it and get that, so that I could actually have a credential to say, I can help out in the community. But I guess I also had my son. My son was born, I think, that following year, or that year actually, was born that year. So with that, I needed to sort of move in a different way. Essentially the events would then take place after 2, 3, 4 years after I'd gone through that course, because obviously they have certain policies and mandatory ways of going about things if you are working with someone. So from then, I think at first when I found out that it wasn't gonna be that quick, like they were not gonna be looking to make the event that soon, it's sort of, you get kind of discouraged. I'm not gonna lie. It kind of like, because the person who brought the idea to me was speaking in the sense that, yeah, we're gonna do it like soon, 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 and that's why I even came to you. Remember? And I was like, yeah, let's set up for end of year, etc., etc. I think that like setback of knowing that how long it actually is, it really got me to focus on my own work, because now I was thinking, okay, I could spend 2 years trying to acquire this credential, but I already had things I was already doing. I don't think I'd shared with you like Faith, Health, and Wealth by then. That's when I was actually starting up with Faith, Health, and Health with Mabinti, and like QHABA as well was already in the pipeline. So we were working on those prototypes. So I guess sometimes when you have those setbacks or those checks, kind of reevaluate. You check yourself as well. You know what I mean? Can you invest that amount of time with where you are personally into that kind of a course? And for me, it wasn't, but I guess I took it on board and thought, you know what, Luke is on working together, like maybe something, somehow, someday we will do something. And just kept pushing on.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And so I have to give a shout out to Binti, actually. So for guys who don't know who Binti is, somebody who I think through this podcast is going to be kind of in the background, but Leeroy's business partner at Faith, Health, and Wealth, and pretty much done our awesome graphics and that. So shout out to Binti. Thank you so much for helping out with that. But okay, yeah, man, that makes sense. And but like, so even though you got discouraged around that and that event, it's like it sounds like it inspired you then to pursue more Faith, Health, and Wealth, and everything, and in the other business projects you have as well.
Yeah, it did. It really did. I have this way of looking at my year, and around that time was around September we spoken, and usually around leading up towards the end of the year, it becomes a very reflective time for me. And when I was now thinking about that year and thinking about, okay, I may not be doing that event or making that event happen as soon as it could, in reflection, I was very sort of encouraged by the progress I had made personally in my personal growth. And that gave me the fuel to push on. As much as I didn't know what was around the coming year, as much as I didn't know how our relationship would develop, because I thought, yeah, you had Grow Together, and you had invited me on Grow Together, community, and I was there, and I was watching everyone, and I saw everybody's qualities, and I guess that the idea of, you know what, these people, there is already a group of people who are doing something with their lives, so bringing them together and putting them on a platform which gives them, even a bigger audience would be great. So that idea never stopped. And even with Faith, Health and Wealth developed, we kind of like were touching upon sort of ideas as well. And I think we even spoke on them when we were meeting up in Cheltenham, didn't we? But yeah, like it really gave me the push to just keep thinking about ways to grow, and developing what I've already had. Yeah. How did you find that? Yeah. Because I came with you with an idea that sounded very solid. Like, yeah, we're gonna do this, we do this, so how I was wondering, what were you thinking through that process?
So I was just grateful for the potential opportunity. Ultimately, like I was just thinking that, like, I think that was 2018. Like towards the end of 2018. So I was doing Grow Together like for that year. Like I found it beginning of that year. And so, I was just grateful for that opportunity, or that potential opportunity. And just like connecting with like-minded people, and I seen what you were doing and it was like, yes, really want to get involved. And then I think the first time we met was 2019 around May. I think around May or June, and then we met again like more in the summer, like August, something like that. And and even when we met, kind of learning more about Faith, Health and Wealth and everything, and obviously the other businesses that you have. Obviously, then you came onto the Grow Together podcast, and we shot that walking around this Cheltenham, which was super fun. And we had a few distractions. I think we went to this park, didn't we? And then we had I remember this one part when I was I had to edit the episode because I think it was like a helicopter or like a plane. I don't know if you remember, like went over and it was like super loud, and so usually I don't try and edit a lot of like the episode because keep it raw and like real and everything. But that we for like 5 minutes we were just there like, okay, well, when's this plane gonna like go or this helicopter gonna go type of thing. But so yeah, obviously then you came on to the Grow Together podcast, and then the times that we met, we also was discussing ideas around events, actually around events and that. So but I think like that stemmed from maybe like the original idea that you went to the football club with, and so like maybe that was like already in the back of our minds. But so to answer your question, I was just grateful for the potential opportunity, but always open-minded to where things could go.
I hear that. Nah, that's nice.
So that was kind of where I in a way where I was at. And then obviously like we've always kept in touch. And then so for a bit of context for our listeners, in that I had another podcast called Motivational Mentors with an awesome guy called Arsenio. Leeroy also came onto that podcast as well. And I think on that show, Leeroy was one of the last guests that we done before Arsenio had to leave the podcast. But I wanted to continue. I really love the dynamics of having a co-host, and so I wanted to continue in some way. But obviously, Arsenio had other projects in that and kind of went on to pursue those. And I was like, okay, who can I continue or start something new with in this co-host format? And yeah, that's pretty much when I reached out to you and was like, dude, like, obviously we've been having like kind of like going back and forth around events ideas and everything for a little while. So this was like November time or December time back end of last year. And I was like, how about a podcast, And I think this is quite funny for people. So we had the idea like back end of last year, and then obviously like you have Christmas and New Year, so it like got delayed a bit. And then I think we were going to do in like February, but the whole kind of vision for me, or like what I wanted to do with the show, guys, because Leeroy comes down kind of my way so often, I really wanted to do like an in-person one. I don't know if our listeners or watchers kind of see like other podcasts where they kind of have like all these boom arms around the table and they're all like just discussing topics and kind of, you know what I'm saying? I don't know if people like even know what I'm on about, but if you kind of go onto Instagram and that, you kind of see people like having these discussions, like, and so I wanted like that type of show ultimately, like in person and everything. And then obviously like they'd hit like lockdown and that, and we were like, okay, we can't do that. And so then we had to go back to the drawing board. And I think from my perspective, Leeroy, just got to a point where we're like, okay, let's like not put this off anymore. Like, let's do this thing. And then obviously when things go back to normal, whatever normal is, then we can kind of go back to those original plans. But that's kind of how then things, then started to move forward.
Yeah, I think from my context, I guess, like for our listeners, I'd been working on Faith, Health, and Wealth, and QHABA, which is Faith, Health, and Wealth. It's all about faith, health, and wealth. It's in the name. And I've been working with.
So sorry, Leeroy. So for a bit of context, like, if you talk more about what kind of those two businesses are and kind of what they're made up of. So obviously at Faith, Health, and Wealth, you have the blog and kind of that type of content, right, around those three core things.
Yeah. We've got the blog right now. We're working on the blog, and just building our contributors list and just sharing what they have to give. So we basically, anybody who's got something to share, whether it's about faith, whether it's about health, whether it's about wealth, they are welcome to come on our platform and share through our blogs what they do. It's gradually developed from just because when we initially started it with Mabinti, it was an art illustration shop,
right,
that we wanted to just sell certain art, and that we felt that people may resonate and just want on their walls, or just and I guess once we really came down to thinking about it, which is like the end of 2018 as well, because we started it in 2018, we realized, what, this is quite a very big idea. So let's really see what we can do with it. And hence we started the blog, and we wanted to, that's something that we are aiming for long term, which is to have faith, health, and wealth events around the world. So that's where faith, health, and wealth is right now. It's where we're just blogging, and we had already started. We had started a podcast, I think, at the end of last year. And I think that's when you came as well, and then I was on your podcast, and then on Motivational Podcast, and then you came to me just shortly after, and you're like, let's come together and work on a podcast. And I was very grateful for that, because I didn't even think you'd even consider me for that. But yeah, I had started working on a podcast, and I guess I want to live the word that I'm preaching. It's very easy.
So important.
You know what I mean? It's
go on.
very easy for people I can easily tell you all I have in my mind and tell you what's best for you and all sorts of things. But if you don't see it through my life, then what good is it for you? Because you're just hearing it. And I think that's what stopped me from a lot of trying to expose myself in terms of what I'm doing and things that I'm up to a lot of people, because I want to have it aligned within me first.
Mm-hmm.
I want those words to actually impact my life so that I can be able to actually live what I preach. And I guess so that's where faith, health, and wealth, like, we're like, okay, there were certain topics and subjects. I think we've got one episode on YouTube on faith, health, and wealth, and literally I think the next one I felt like it was talking about freedom, and it really got me to deep, like, freedom. And I thought to myself, like, am I really free? Like, do I really feel like I'm free within, to really feel like, yeah? And it really got me to really sit back and really think about quite a lot of things in my life. But with that, you realize that you also grow, and through you, like, analyzing and just taking an introspective look into yourself, you're able to see what you are working on, if it's actually working, and if it's actually something you can share with the world. So that's Faith, Health, and Wealth. And the other business, like you were mentioning, is Q Heba. Q Heba was it's a perfume that me and my Binti and a couple of our friends we started.
I remember
And
that. Yeah. Sorry, right. I remember that. Second time I think we met.
Yeah.
Second time we think about. I think you brought like a sample down. You're like, Luke, try this. And I was like, Leeroy, what is this? And you're like, it's like, yeah, it's, and you're like really passionate about it. It's like new project I've been working on. I was like, okay, like spring me type of thing. Yeah, and I was like, man, that's really good.
Really good.
So yeah.
Yeah, man. So that one has been in the works since 2017. So it took us quite a long while to really get our just our ingredients and our recipes right, because we really wanted to give a quality product. And I guess the product that I showed you, that was something that we already started selling as well, and that was a sample bowl. I think we sold out. We only launched last year, July, and we sold out of our second batches of perfumes. And literally right now, we're just working on little samples that we're going to be selling for like £1 on our website for people to try, because we realize that it's hard for you to sell something that you've never tried before, especially when it comes to something like cosmetics and perfumes and stuff. So that's something that we were working on. And I guess that's been also a process where it's taught me a lot about business, about just being patient, persevering, and just keep going. And if you believe it and you can see it in your mind, then there's nothing that can stop you from actually actualizing that. And the sample product is a testament for that. Because 3 years ago, it was just an idea. We just sat around drinking cups of teas, and then we're like, you know what? What about a herbal, nice organic perfume that's powerful enough, but still subtle enough not to be overpowering around the people you're around? And here we are, man. So yeah, it's always a journey, ain't it? And you saw the product as well, and I guess with all that, and then coming to do this podcast, I feel like I am at a place now where I can actually just take this time and actually share my thoughts and share what I've been up to, and actually share this unorthodox perspective I've had of life, for a while now.
Yeah, for sure, man. And that really brings us on to like more about kind of this podcast, I feel, because so obviously, guys, we've shared a little bit about how it took us a little while to kind of get to this point. And obviously, when we were thinking about names and that, we came up with a few. We came up with Unconventional Conversations, and then we were just about to kind of dive into that. I mean, Leeroy's laughing already. It's like, and then we realized that there was another show that was a same name, and I was like, fuck, man, like I fucking done research, it's like, fuck, how the hell did I miss that?
It was my Binti, wasn't it? She brought it up to us, didn't
yeah. And I was like, fuck, man. And then I was like, typed it in again, and I was like, how the hell did I miss that? Type of thing. Because so we were originally going to call it that, and then we was going to call it Unorthodox Minds, and then probably about a month ago, I had this epiphany where I was like, actually, I'm kind of on this thing right now of perspective, and that I think it was around the time I shared a post on Instagram around I done like a post around like how you see the world and what your perspective is kind of that's kind of life type of thing. And I was like, let's change the name again. And I messaged Leeroy, and he was like, yeah, man, like Leeroy, you're type of you're a laid back guy, right? It's similar to me. So you were just like, yeah, Luke, do whatever. And I was like, okay, we're changing the name, like Bentiki, let's like change the logo and everything.
We had everything set up, wasn't it? Everything was set up with the mind and everything.
And then I just went and put a spanner in the works, but no, so like, yeah, it's good. That's good. And so it's changed names and that over the last 5-6 months. But I'm happy that we're here. And I suppose like looking forward a bit, Leeroy, from your perspective on Unorthodox Perspectives. I know for me, I want to share like unorthodox perspectives, like things that I kind of see in the world that aren't conventional, like, because I feel like that is how we challenge like the status quo and everything, and then ultimately end up changing for the better. So I don't know like your thoughts on kind of what we're doing here, and like the plan ahead and some of the things that you're going to be talking about and sharing in that. But for me, it's really about sharing those unorthodox, unconventional thoughts, and just kind of like having that platform. And obviously, every so often we're also going to bring guests on that kind of share their thoughts in that as well. But yeah, like I'll hand it back over to you. But that's kind of my own thoughts on it.
Yeah, and for me, it was okay. I don't want to talk too much. I can't talk too much. I think you realize that I can go forever. But I think the best way I can say it, it's like what you're saying. It's true. Like it's shining a light on the things that we do not necessarily conventionally look at. Now, I remember reading a book. It was quite instrumental in my development. It was called The Teachings of Don Juan. Now, it's a heavy book, and it challenges your perception of life and how you understand life. But I remember one example he made. It was like we are all like we're all like spirits, right? And around you there's a bubble, like and perception is like an indenting of a bubble. So think about, if you look at my skin right now, like when I put a dent, that's the perception you've had for so long. And the longer you look at life, the longer you are so indented with that one perception. And it's about shifting that focus from this one point to another point, to a new point, to something new, something you haven't. And in that new spot, you see life differently. I'm trying to paraphrase, but
No, it's good.
that's how I thought about it. Unorthodox perspectives. I felt like what you said, like in order for us to look at the world differently, we have to think differently. It always starts in your mind. I guess the unorthodox perspectives, the minds, it really it was good when we thought about the minds, unorthodox minds. But I remember even when we were talking, and I think you mentioned it, that it sounds more introspective. But perspective sounds more, it's out there. It's like, we're seeing things differently. And when we bring on guests, they are bringing their perception of a different world, not necessarily just their different mind, but now it's also connecting with the world. And I guess that's something that really excited me about unorthodox perspectives, because it's like, wow, what kind of conversations are we actually gonna have on this show? Because we want to talk not about the general things. I don't want to talk about what happened then, and who's doing this and whatever. No, I want to talk about things that, what if we looked at life this way? How would it look? It's an unorthodox mindset, but how would it actually look? And it's through like dwelling on that thought. Do we then gain more thoughts of, you just develop more thoughts on that point. I remember I was speaking to a friend of mine earlier this week, and he taught me something new that I think has really changed my life. He told me about the 67-second rule.
I'm gonna write
Now, 67-second rule means that the first thing you do in the morning, when you wake up, is that you make an agreement with yourself. One thing we don't realize is that we go throughout the whole day making small agreements for the creation that happens in our life. It was like sometimes you end up at a point in life and you're like, why me? Why is this all happening to me? What did I do? No, you can't ask why me, because you agreed for that creation to happen. You have to remember the universe works with what you are requiring, what you are asking for. There's certain laws of life that we cannot change, like where the sun sets and rises. It will never change. It respects that. So we also have to remember, as human beings, there are certain laws that we connect with the environment, and how we interact with it will develop whatever reality we end up with. So if you now think the 67-second rule means that from the first minute you wake up, that first 60 seconds, if you realize there are certain days you'll wake up and you'll just be like on fire. You're like, yes, today just feels good. And then if you look at that day, everything just seems to be aligning positively. And when you come to the end of the day, you're like, this was a good day. Similarly, you can have similar bad days. You're like, today I just don't feel like it. And then you get up and the whole day just seems like it's just going to the negative side. And you come to the end of the day and you're like, that was such a bad day. But 67 seconds, the first 67 seconds, you make a decision. And the more you dwell on that bad thought, after that 7 seconds of the new minute, you automatically double the effect. So now you are drawing it after 67 seconds of focusing on one thing, you are attracting more of it.
Makes sense.
Every time you make a decision to say, today I just don't want anything to do with it, there's a minute you almost, like, you can almost switch back to a positive end. But after a minute, you're like, this is the right decision. Do you see what happens then? You now continue on confirming to yourself and literally believing that, yes, it is a bad day. So 67 seconds is what you can change your life, literally, based on what you decide to do. He made a very a very very good example. He was like, okay, we all know, we have watched porn before, you know what I mean? And he was like, if you look, when you watch porn, the first minute, sometimes you don't feel like, you feel bad about doing what you're doing. But then after 67 seconds, you kind of like, okay, you drop your guard. Another 67 seconds, you're like, you know what, I'm actually enjoying this. Do you know what I'm saying? That's my point now. You see what I mean? We attract, you are just compounding the effect every 67 seconds of your decision. So you go through life and you make decisions, but we rarely ever realize what we're putting into making those decisions. And when we create the life that our decisions have done, we are sort of like, why me? Why is this happening to me? No, just look at the agreements you've made to yourself. It's the agreements you've allowed yourself, and through that, the universe has respected your decision and has just attracted everything you need. You said you want the bad, I'll give you the bad. If you want the good, I'll give you the good, because that's the law of the universe. And us as human beings, we are powerful creatures, but we very rarely deep how powerful we are. And until we start looking at that, we can do wonders. Man.
So I think that's super powerful for people. And one thing that I would add to that is then like, let's just say, so I'll start again. Then, like, I don't know, a day later, or like whenever it is later, we then have the regret or feel bad that we still, like, that we made that decision. And I think a lot of people don't think about the long-term effect of things because they're so caught up in the short-term pleasure of things.
Gratification, yes.
And things like that. So I think that, that 67-second rule will definitely help a lot of people. And just kind of like building on that as well, like, you just find what you look for. Like, if you want to, I use this example a lot with social. If you want to find the negative stuff on social, like, literally, I can go onto Twitter right now and show you a bunch of negative shit. Like, you know what I'm saying? I can do that right now. I can also find a lot of positive stuff. Where are you looking?
Literally, it's our perception. You know what I mean? So the more you indent yourself with that negativity, the more you draw to it. It's like you're making a place for it. You know what I mean? So it's like something where you have to realize that you have the power. in every minute, in every second. It's not necessarily every minute, but you have to realize there's certain times when you want to decide on doing something. That's when the 67-second rule counts. Because in that moment of you consciously trying to decide something, after 67 seconds of watching or doing that, it's just going to compound and attract more of whatever you've asked or decided to do. So that's what it is. We want to just, I guess, have more of these conversations, man. You know, me, I can talk for the world, man.
No, I love it. I love it. And I think also, like, that's where growth can happen. I think, like, through these types of conversations and shifting that perspective, ultimately, I think that's where growth can happen, because then you're seeing just different perspectives, you know? So, yeah, ultimately, guys, like, really looking forward to the next couple of weeks, but like next few months and beyond, you know, as Leeroy and I share and discuss these unorthodox or unconventional perspectives, topics, and also bring other people onto the show who we've met in our journeys, diving into like their minds and you know, learning like how they've also done things differently, you know, like hearing about their unorthodox, unconventional perspectives as well. So I'm just really looking forward to the next couple of weeks and beyond, man.
Definitely, man. Should be fine. Should be good. Should be blessed. Beautiful.
Awesome. Cool. So I think that's pretty much, I suppose, you know, obviously you shared a lot about kind of faith, health, and wealth and what you're doing. I can quickly run through like what I do, and that for people as well. Like if people don't know, I mean, you know, most people might, but for those who don't, like we were talking about, I created a personal growth community called Grow Together, and I still do that today. And obviously, Leeroy came onto the podcast, part of the community, and so the goal there, and it's like the podcast really fits into like the mission there as well, and like my overall life mission, which is I describe it as like create a conscious personal growth world, you know, where we're practicing principles like do more, complain less, where we're practicing principles like expect nothing, appreciate everything, and these sorts of things, you know, like gratitude and optimism and positivity, that with this show, with Grow Together and everything else that I do, but also with this show, like these are like, I kind of realized that those things are also somebody's perspective as well, like seeing the world in a negative way or seeing the world in a positive, optimistic way. You know, like that's how you choose to see the world. Like that is your perspective. So I think, you know, from my point of view, like everything is coming around full circle, especially until I realized more about what my mission is. Like before, you know, I wanted ultimately just to connect more like-minded people together. But after reading the book Start With Why by Simon Sinek at the beginning of the year, I really started to uncover more of like my why, help people become the best, help people to accomplish the ultimate goal, a better version of themselves. And if we all done that collectively, create a more conscious personal growth world where we're again like where we're practicing those like sorts of principles and everything. So that's a little bit on kind of like me and like why I really wanted to do this. And yeah, so it really fits into Grow Together and everything. So another podcast to add to the collection. I've already got 2 on the go with Grow Together. So we've got the Grow Together podcast and one that I launched probably about 2 months ago now, Redefine Your 20s, that is more dedicated to helping young people dive into like this personal growth world so they don't end up having regrets in their 30s. Again, I've seen that so often, or, you know, heard the stories and everything. And it's like, I want to use this age to build something. Let's build something, you know, instead of like wasting our time and doing things like living for the weekend, living for Friday night, you know, getting drunk or going to the club or something, or regretting it Monday morning. You know, it's like personal growth and personal development. And I had this guest come on and say this to me, is a new type of fun. I don't think people think like this journey is fun. You know, like Leeroy, if you had fun growing, if you had fun on this personal development journey,
Too much fun, man. It's
Too
too
much
much.
fun.
I just
There
want
we
to
go.
share it. Can't you see? I'm growing, man. I'm growing.
That's it.
Definitely, man. It's really fun. It really is.
That's it. So so anyway, like that's a bit of me, like obviously huge podcaster now with 3 shows and everything. So yeah, again, I'll repeat myself. I'm just really looking forward to this journey in that. And I think that pretty much concludes like things from my end, Leeroy, unless you have anything to add to what we've shared today.
Like I said, once again, to the unorthodox perspectives.
Yeah. Awesome, dude. Awesome. So guys, please, if you're listening to this intro episode, please do subscribe. Check out Faith, Health and Wealth. Check out, is it Q Herber? As well. Check out Grow Together. Check out the podcast collection that we have at Grow Together. I will link everything in the show notes, in the description. And any questions you have, guys, maybe I want to keep this show. Obviously, we're going to be doing guests and just conversations between me and Leeroy. But I want to keep it kind of be flexible, I suppose. So what I mean by that, if there's a topic that listeners want us to kind of discuss, or if listeners have questions and everything, and to share our perspectives on kind of those things and everything, then guys, just get in touch with Leeroy or myself, and or go to our website when it's properly up and running. Again, all links that I'm mentioning will be in the show notes in the description. And fire away, if there's a topic you want us to talk about, through this process, I want to bring the most value as well by sharing these perspectives and things, because again, I'll repeat myself, that's where I think the growth will happen. That's where we can change, not just ourselves, not just, our environments and everything, but if we all done that, then change the world ultimately, it's the collective thing.
I think there's one thing I remember when I started getting on my personal journey was there's this song that says one man can change the world, and I really took that into heart, because I thought to myself, okay, if you change yourself, as they say, you need to change yourself before you can change the world. And it's ultimately that you need to just change yourself.
Powerful, man. It comes back full circle. I love how things always come back around for full circle. It comes back to what we opened with, right? Where you were talking about preaching, and practice what you preach and everything. It's I think it just comes back to that. If you work on yourself, I shared a post on this the other day. Fix yourself first. Work on yourself. That's a long life journey, but I think if we're able to get to a point where this certain level, this certain point, and then go out and help others, I think that's really important, because then it comes back into the whole self-care thing of obviously we can always help others, but I do think with helping others ourselves, we have to get to that point where I want to use the word mental toughness, because helping others sometimes can be tough, they may not want to grow or change or whatever it is. And so I think if you're able to build that mental toughness yourself, then that really helps. So yeah, I love that, man. Practice what you preach and everything. So I'm sure that will come up in the next couple of weeks. But awesome, Leeroy. So yeah, where can people learn more about Faith, Health and Wealth? I'll put all links down in the show notes, guys.
Yeah, I mean, we have a website, we've got an Instagram account, we've got a YouTube account that we recently created, and you can just find us on there. I think we're on Twitter as well, but none of us are really much Twitterish, so we need to work on that end. But yeah, you can find our content on Instagram, Facebook, and online, and Q Hub as well. You can find us on Instagram and on our website, Q Herba. That's QUE Herba, HERBA. So that's where you can find more of our stuff, and just man, I hope you liked our episode. This is our intro, and you'll be seeing more of us, so stay tuned. It should be fun.
It will, man. Just before we wrap up and go, I just realized that obviously a part of your story and journey as well. Like you do a lot of things. I feel like I've done a lot of things, but you do as well. So also a writer.
Yes, I write. I write also.
And do so many other things. So
I was just gonna keep to Ben.
for sure. But like I think a lot of that will also come out over the next couple of weeks as well. So
Definitely.
So yeah.
Yeah.
But,
you can find more of myself. Atlasly speaking. You find more. I've got Atlasly's pics. I also do photography.
Right. So really, really quick, and then I promise, guys, we will wrap up. I will obviously when I've been tagging you in the posts, like I type in your name, and then this other account popped up, and I was like, "What's this?" So I clicked through, and then it was your photography account, and then obviously that's when I messaged you. I was like, "Dude, you take pictures as well?" Like I never knew that. Like, come on, go share this stuff. But guys, I'm
trying to build a little sort of like a universe, my own universe around Atlasly. You know what I mean? Atlasly. Why I named myself Atlasly? It's like I've got a heavy. You know the Atlas man who carries the world on his shoulders.
I do.
Yeah, if you type in Atlas,
I'll Google it.
Yeah, you'll find there's a man who's holding the whole world on his shoulders, basically.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So I thought to myself, you know what? I want to do a lot for this world, and I feel it's heavily impressed on me to actually imprint something on the world. So you know what? I will do it all.
There we go. That's it, man. Awesome, guys. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. Again, links in the show notes, in the description. Check out myself, check out Grow Together, check out Leeroy, check out all of the projects that he's got going on. And we will be back with another episode of Unorthodox Perspectives. Have an awesome week, guys. Hey guys, thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Unorthodox Perspectives.
If you liked today's episode on the show, please subscribe and leave a comment below.
All relevant links for today's episode of the podcast can be found in the description, so please check them out.
And we will be back next week with another episode. Until then, have an awesome week.